For 4 years, Anya Petrova was a ghost at Firebase Meridian, a sprawling NATO outpost carved into the unforgiving landscape of eastern Afghanistan. Her world was one of steam and steel, of clattering trays and the low hum of industrial refrigerators. 3 times a day, she materialized from the kitchen's swirling mists to serve meals to the hardened soldiers of the coalition forces. At dawn, she ladled oatmeal and poured coffee, her movements economical and precise. At midday, she dished out hearty stews and sandwiches, her expression placid and unreadable. In the evening, as the sun bled out behind the jagged peaks of the Hindu Kush, she served roasted chicken and potatoes, a silent fixture in the lives of men who lived and breathed danger. She was just Anna the cook. To the Green Berets, the SAS operators, and the Marsak raiders she fed, she was a peripheral figure, part of the base's machinery. They saw the dark, practical headscarf that covered her hair, the faint tracery of scars on her knuckles, and the way she never met anyone's gaze for more than a fleeting second. They heard her polite, heavily accented greetings soft. "Good morning, Sergeant," or a simple "enjoy your meal." But the words were walls, not bridges. She was a phantom in an apron, a woman who seemed to have perfected the art of being invisible. She moved with a quiet grace that bordered on unnerving, her footsteps making no sound on the grimy linoleum floor. After the last soldier was served, she would retreat into the sanctuary of her kitchen, the swinging doors whispering shut behind her, and disappear once more into the background of a world defined by noise, aggression, and the constant, thrumming tension of war. But the apron and the headscarf were a disguise, a carefully constructed camouflage for a life left shattered in another war-torn landscape. Before she had ever picked up a ladle, Anya Petrova had been Captain Anya Petrova of the Spetsnaz, one of Russia's most elite special forces units. She was a prodigy, a woman who had not just excelled but dominated in every brutal school the GRU could conceive. She was a master of unconventional warfare, a ghost who could slip through enemy lines as if she were made of smoke. Her skill with a rifle was legendary. She could hit a target from a kilometer away in a swirling dust storm, her breathing slow and steady, her heartbeat a metronome of lethal calm. Reconnaissance, sabotage. Close quarters combatees had been the pillars of her existence. Her life had been a symphony of controlled violence, a series of missions executed with surgical precision in the shadowy corners of the world. But one rain-slicked night in Chechnya, that symphony had reached a discordant, soul-shattering crescendo. The mission was to eliminate a high-value target, a notorious warlord. Intel had been precise. The target would be in a specific room at a specific time. Anya was the tip of the spear. She moved through the darkness, a predator in her natural element, and breached the room with silent efficiency. But the intel had been wrong. The figure in the room was not the warlord. It was his son, a boy no older than 12, clutching a toy soldier. In the split second of confusion and horror, the boy raised an old, rusty pistola. Desperate, frightened jester. Anya's training, honed by years of relentless drilling, took over. The shot was instinctual, a reflex arc of muscle and nerve. The boy fell, the toy soldier clattering to the floor. The mission was a success in the cold calculus of military objectives. The warlord, drawn by the sound, was eliminated moments later by her team. Anya was decorated, her actions lauded as decisive, but the medals felt like shards of ice against her skin, each one a testament to the weight of the life she had taken. The face of the boy haunted her, his wide, terrified eyes a permanent fixture in the landscape of her memory. She could no longer reconcile the commendations with the crushing guilt that had hollowed out her soul. And so, she vanished. She orchestrated her own disappearance, slipping through the cracks of the system she had once served with unwavering loyalty. She traded her rifle for a set of kitchen knives, her fatigues for a simple apron, seeking a quiet, anonymous penance in the heart of her former enemy's territory, hoping the mundane routine of serving meals could silence the ghosts of her past. Firebase Meridian was a monument to military engineering, a self-contained city of HESCO barriers, reinforced concrete, and razor wire, sprawling across a desolate plateau. It was home to 500 personnel, a hornet's nest of intelligence analysts, drone pilots, and support staff. But its crown jewel, the reason for its existence, was Spectre Cell, 15-man unit of the most elite special operators drawn from the best of NATO's Tier 1 forces. They were the ghosts of the Hindu Kush, the whispers on the wind that struck fear into the hearts of insurgents. They were, by every measure, untouchable. That illusion was shattered on a crisp October morning, just as the first rays of sunlight began to crest the eastern mountains. The day began not with the familiar roar of a C-130, but with the percussive, deafening crump of coordinated RPG strikes. The explosions ripped through the outer perimeter with terrifying accuracy, targeting guard towers and communication arrays. Within 60 seconds, Meridian was blind and deaf, its electronic eyes plucked out, its voice silenced. The generators sputtered and died, plunging the base into a chaotic half-light. Before the dust from the initial assault had even begun to settle, the true attack began. Masked soldiers, clad in cutting-edge tactical gear and moving with the fluid, disciplined grace of seasoned professionals, poured through the breaches. Their assault was a masterclass in surgical warfare, a brutal, efficient ballet of violence. They didn't storm the base, they dissected it, bypassing non-essential areas and flowing like water toward their single high-value objective. From the small, grimy window of the kitchen, Anna watched the unthinkable unfold. Her hands, which had been kneading dough for the midday meal, froze in place, dusted with flour. She saw Spectre Cell, the men she had silently served for 4 years, react with the instinctual speed of true warriors. They formed a tight, defensive perimeter around their barracks, their rifles barking defiance into the morning air. But they were outmaneuvered, outmatched. The attackers didn't engage in a firefight. They weren't there to kill. From the rooftops, snipers fired, not bullets, but tranquilizer darts. Concussion grenades rolled into the perimeter, unleashing disorienting waves of sound and light. Anna watched in stunned horror as these titans, these men she had come to see as an unlikely, unspoken family, were systematically neutralized. She saw their commander, a giant of a man with a booming laugh she'd often heard from her kitchen, stagger as a dart hit his neck. She saw the others, one by one, succumb to the stunned weapons and the fast-acting sedatives. They were not defeated in battle. They were harvested like livestock. The entire operation took less than 12 minutes. The most feared and respected operators in the entire theater of war were bound, hooded, and dragged into the back of waiting armored trucks. As the trucks roared out of the breached perimeter and vanished into the vast, indifferent desert, the rest of Firebase Meridian was still reeling, its defenses crumbling under the weight of the diversionary attacks. Anna stood by the window, her heart a cold, heavy stone in her chest, the scent of baking bread suddenly feeling like a profane mockery. In that moment, something inside Anna, something long dormant and deliberately buried, fractured and broke free. The quiet, unassuming cook who blended into the shadows was gone, burned away by the cold fire of renewed purpose. With a deliberate, almost ceremonial slowness, she untied the strings of her apron and let it fall to the floor. She moved to the large, industrial walk-in freezer, her steps no longer silent and self-effacing, but charged with a predatory energy. She knelt, pried open a loose floor panel beneath the humming freezer unit, and reached into the darkness. Her fingers brushed against cold, familiar steel. She pulled out a weathered, oilcloth-wrapped bundle. Unrolling it revealed a custom-made VSS Vintorez sniper rifle, its integrated suppressor giving it a sleek, deadly profile. Alongside it lay a Stecken automatic pistol, several magazines of subsonic 9x39mm ammunition, a combat knife, and a compact satellite phone. Her movements were no longer those of a cook, but of a seasoned operator. The hesitancy in her eyes was replaced by a flinty, analytical hardness. Muscle memory forged in the crucible of 100 missions took over. She checked the action on the rifle, the satisfyingly solid clack of the bolt echoing in the sudden silence of the kitchen. She strapped the knife to her forearm and holstered the pistol, the familiar weight a comforting presence against her hip. For the first time in 4 long years, Captain Anya Petrova, the ghost of the Spetsnaz, had returned. Her mission was simple, absolute, and born of a fierce, protective loyalty she hadn't realized she possessed. Find her team, her family, and bring them back from the brink of oblivion. Anya's first move was not toward the gate, but to the command center. The chaos was her camouflage. In the smoke-filled, sparking ruin of the communications hub, she moved like a wraith, her eyes scanning the damaged systems. She wasn't a hacker, but she knew systems. She knew how to read the digital ghosts left behind in the wake of an attack. Splicing into a still-functioning internal server, she began to sift through the fragmented data logs, her mind working with a cold, detached clarity. The attackers had known too much. Their timing, their knowledge of patrol routes, the precise location of the generator sits, all screamed of insider knowledge. Her search led her down a rabbit hole of encrypted data transfers and ghost protocols, and they're buried beneath layers of deception. She found it, a series of unauthorized, outgoing communications originating from the terminal of one-man Major David Miles, the base's executive officer. Miles, a man with a reputation for being a BSO book career-focused officer, had been selling them out for months. Anya cross-referenced the transmission times with Spectre Cell's operational calendar. The pattern was undeniable. Miles had been feeding a steady stream of intelligence to an unknown entity, detailing everything from guard shifts to the technical specifications of Meridian's defenses. The final transfer, sent just hours before the attack, contained the one piece of information that made the abduction possible. The precise time Spectre Cell would be rotating to a new alert status, a brief window when they would be at their most vulnerable. Without his treachery, the fortress would have held. The betrayal was a venomous snake coiling in her gut, but it also gave her a crucial piece of the puzzle. This wasn't a random act of terror. It was a calculated, well-funded operation with a specific goal: to acquire the most valuable human assets in the region. With the betrayal confirmed, Anya's focus shifted to recovery. She knew the enemy would move fast. She had a window, maybe 48 hours at most, before Spectre Cell was spirited out of the country and disappeared into the labyrinthine world of black sites and clandestine prisons. Using the last known trajectory of the trucks and cross-referencing it with her own deep knowledge of the region's geography and insurgent activity, she narrowed down the potential holding sites to 3 logical possibilities: a network of abandoned Soviet-era mining tunnels in the north, a series of fortified mountain caves used by a local warlord, and an old Iranian border fortress to the east. She pulled up satellite imagery on a barely functioning terminal, her mind a whirlwind of tactical analysis. The tunnels were too unstable, too easy to collapse. The caves were a possibility, but they lacked the infrastructure to hold 15 elite soldiers for any length of time. The fortress, however, it was perfect. It had reinforced walls, multiple cell blocks, and a commanding view of the surrounding terrain. It was defensible, secure, and remote enough to avoid immediate detection. The military's standard operating procedure was clear: wait for the quick reaction force, wait for reinforcements, wait for a plan to be formulated through the slow, grinding gears of bureaucracy. Anya knew that waiting was a death sentence. To wait was to condemn the men she served every day to an unknown, horrific fate. In that moment, she made a choice. She would not wait. She would not follow procedure. Alone, armed with only her skills and a burning resolve, she shouldered the immense risk. She would go after them herself. The journey to the fortress was a brutal testament to her training. She moved through the harsh, unforgiving mountains like a phantom, the landscape her ally. She used the terrain to mask her approach, her movements economical and silent, leaving no trace of her passage. She avoided the few established roads, knowing they would be watched. She drank sparingly from her canteen, her body conditioned to endure hardship. Drones, likely launched by the attackers to monitor the area, buzzed in the sky above, but she was a ghost, melting into the shadows of rock formations and deep ravines whenever their telltale whine grew close. She arrived at the fortress as night draped its dark cloak over the mountains. From a ridge overlooking the compound, she observed her enemy. 30 guards, at least, disciplined, well-equipped, and alert. They moved with the confident swagger of professionals, but she noticed a critical flaw in their defense. Their posture was entirely inward-facing. All their attention, all their security measures, were designed to prevent an escape. They weren't expecting an infiltration. They believed they were untouchable in their stolen fortress. Anya waited, her patience a weapon in itself. She watched the guard rotations, memorized their patrol patterns, and noted the slight dip in alertness as the cold, deep hours of the morning set in. At 03:30 hours, when human bodies are at their weakest and minds are at their most sluggish, she made her move. She descended the ridge, a shadow detaching itself from other shadows, and began her one-woman assault on the lion's den. Bypassing their perimeter sensors was child's play. A silent takedown of a lone guard near the wall, a whispered breath of movement, and she was inside. She moved through the compound like a deadly mist, a whisper of death in the cold night air. The heart of the fortress was a reinforced, subterranean chamber, its heavy steel door a testament to its former purpose as a munitions bunker. Anya disabled the electronic lock with practiced ease and slipped inside. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and despair. There, under the dim glow of a single bare bulb, sat Spectre Cell. They were bound to chairs, their heads bowed in drugged exhaustion, but they were alive. As Anya moved into the light, the commander, a man known only as Rook, lifted his head. His eyes, though weary, widened in stunned recognition. He saw not the quiet cook who served him his morning coffee, but something else. Entirely a warrior. Without a word, Anya used her combat knife to slice through Rook's restraints. "Who are you?" he rasped, his voice hoarse. "Just a cook," she replied in a low, steady voice, a faint, ironic smile touching her lips. "I was a Spetsnaz captain. My name is Anya." Recognition and a dawning, incredulous respect flickered in Rook's eyes. As she freed the others, a silent, deadly understanding passed between them. They were soldiers, brothers in arms, and their rescuer was one of them, regardless of the flag she had once served under. With scavenged weapons from the guards Anya had dispatched on her way in, the team what had begun as a desperate, one-woman rescue mission transformed in an instant into a joint assault. 15 special operators, led by a Russian ghost, were now loose inside the fortress. The hunters had become the They stormed out of their prison, a synchronized force of righteous fury. In less than an hour, the fortress was theirs, its captors either eliminated or fleeing into the night. 13 warriors, battered but unbroken, had reclaimed their freedom. Back at the now secured firebase Meridian, the debriefing was a surreal affair. Anya, once again in her simple cook's attire, stood before a panel of high-ranking NATO officers, recounting the events with a calm, dispassionate precision. The story she told was almost unbelievable. A tale of one woman against an army. But the 15 members of Spectre Cell, standing behind her in a silent show of unwavering solidarity, were irrefutable proof. Offers were immediately forthcoming. A full pardon for her past, a commission in a NATO Special Operations Unit, a chance to return to the life she had left behind. Anya, politely, but firmly, declined them all. The medals, the glory, the structured life of a soldier. She had no desire to walk that path again. Her war was over, but her purpose, she was beginning to realize, was not. A few days later, she was approached by a quiet, unassuming man in a civilian suit who spoke of a different kind of service. He represented a clandestine program, a network of former special operators placed in low-profile, non-combatant roles in higher-risk areas around the globe. They were mechanics, medics, supply clerks, and cooks. They were sleepers, hidden guardians who looked ordinary, who blended into the background, until the moment a crisis demanded their unique and deadly skills. It was a life in the shadows, a life of quiet vigilance without the burden of rank or recognition. It was a new path, a way to use her skills to protect, not to kill, a way to be a guardian, not a weapon. She accepted without hesitation. To the new soldiers rotating through Firebase Meridian, Anya Petrova was still just the quiet cook who wore a headscarf and served their meals with a polite, distant smile. They called her Mom, a term of casual affection for the woman who provided them with a small taste of home in the middle of a war zone. They had no idea that the hands that served them their food were the same hands that could dismantle a rifle in seconds, the same hands that had single-handedly rescued the most elite fighting force on the continent. But now, every plate of food she served carried the unspoken weight of her new purpose. She was no longer hiding from her past. She was repurposing it, redefining it on her own terms. Beneath the floorboards of her kitchen, the weapon's cache remained, a silent promise of her vigilance. Anya had learned that true strength was unfound in the roar of battle or the gleam of a medal. It was found in the quiet resolve to protect, in the silent commitment to be the shield for those who stand on the front lines. Her strength was in her quiet watchfulness, in her unassuming presence. The most dangerous protector, she now understood, was the one no one ever saw coming. Anya's story is a powerful reminder that our past does not have to define our future. We all carry experiences, some of them heavy, that have shaped who we are. But like Anya, we have the power to choose how we carry that weight. We can let it bury us, or we can use it as a foundation upon which to build a new purpose. Her journey teaches us that strength comes in many forms. It is not always loud and visible. Sometimes, the greatest strength lies in quiet resilience, in the courage to face our own ghosts and forge a new path. It's about finding a way to serve a purpose greater than ourselves, even if that service goes unrecognized. Think about your own life. Are there skills or experiences from your past that you have buried, thinking they no longer have a place? How might you be able to repurpose those skills, not to reclaim an old identity, but to build a new, more meaningful one? What does it mean to be a guardian in your own world, in your own quiet way? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories and insights are what make this community so special. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I wish you all good health and the strength to be the quiet guardian in your own lives. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the depths of the human spirit.